Listen. A single voice, and somehow you hear two. One note low, like a stone. One high and thin, like it comes from the sky. They call it kume. Out here, you learn to hold two things at once. Now look around him. Nothing. In every direction, nothing. Short grass running out to the curve of the earth. Not a fence, not a post, not a road. The wind crosses 300 kilometers without meeting a single wall. And in the middle of all that nothing, one thing. Round, low, the color of snow. A house. The only one for a very, very long way. In front of it, a family is taking that house apart. Folded, rolled, strapped to the back of a camel. In under an hour, all that's left is a round print of flattened grass, as if no one had ever lived there. Tomorrow, the same house will stand again, 40 kilometers away, and the center of the world will move with it. This is Mongolia, the emptiest inhabited place on the planet. And over the next 40 minutes, we're going to answer a single question. What does it mean to belong to a country that is almost entirely emptiness? There is an answer. It lives inside that round house you fold up and carry away. We'll come back to it. By the end, it will explain everything, including what, at this very moment, is quietly disappearing. Look for Mongolia on a map, and the first word that comes to mind is big. Nearly 1.5 million square kilometers, the 19th largest country on Earth. Bigger than Alaska and Texas combined. And wedged in there between two giants, Russia to the north, China to the south, without a single coastline, without 1 inch of access to the sea. Now the second number, the one that changes everything. About 3.5 million people live in all that space. 3.5 million for a country that size. Do the math and you get roughly 2 people per square kilometer. 2. It's the lowest figure of any sovereign nation on the planet. No independent country on Earth is emptier than this one. You could walk an entire day without passing a single face, and instead pass horses, because here the horse is not a hobby. There are almost as many of them as there are people. They've nicknamed this place the Land of the Horse. And above all of it, one thing never changes: the sky. A deep, dry, enormous blue, more than 200 days a year. Mongolians have always called their country the land of the eternal blue sky. This isn't a tourism slogan, it's almost a religion. We'll come back to that too. 3 things here make no sense yet. By the end of this film, they will. The first, how anyone could build a life, a real life, joyful, proud, thousands of years old, on land, this empty, this hard, this cold. The second, how the largest empire humankind has ever known could have been born here, of all places, out of the emptiest country on Earth. The third, why today, in the emptiest country on Earth, almost everyone is crowding into the same single spot. We start at the beginning, with the emptiness. The word for it here is the steppe, a sea of grass, flat or gently swelling, rolling out to the horizon and going on behind it. No trees, no landmarks, nothing to measure distance by, except your own tiredness. The first time, the emptiness is frightening. That's a normal reaction. Our brain looks for an edge, a limit, a wall, and finds nothing. Just grass and sky, touching each other everywhere, all around you, 360 degrees. And then the emptiness changes its name. Steppe in the north, lower down, forest and lakes. And in the south, the Gobi Desert, the largest desert in Asia, the fifth largest on Earth, a sweep of stone and sand where people have stumbled by accident onto dinosaur skeletons still set in the rock. A single country, and inside it, almost every kind of empty landscape the Earth knows how to make. The climate matches. In summer, the thermometer climbs toward 40 degrees Celsius, over 100 Fahrenheit. In winter, it drops toward -40, 80 degrees of swing in one place over a single year. Few inhabited places on Earth ask this much of a human body. So ask the real question. Not how beautiful is this, but how did someone one day look at this, the cold, the emptiness, the total absence of shelter, and decide to stay? The answer isn't in the landscape. It's in one object, a single one, the most important of them all. Imagine you're handed this country. No walls, no cities, no wood to build with. Just grass, cold, and wind. How do you shelter yourself? Mongolians answered thousands of years ago, and their answer is so good it has barely changed since. The ger, what the rest of the world calls a yurt. From a distance, it's a white dome resting on the grass. Up close, it's an idea, a light lattice frame of wood that unfolds like an accordion, poles rising to a wooden ring at the top, open to the sky, and over all of it, layers of thick felt, pressed sheep's wool that hold the heat when everything outside is freezing. At the center, a stove, the heart in the literal sense. The smoke climbs out through that open ring up there, and the door, always, everywhere, without exception, faces south, toward the sun. It's back to the north wind. In a country with no streets and no addresses, every house knows where the world is. That's the genius of the thing. The ger doesn't fight the emptiness. It accepts it. It doesn't cling to the ground. It rests on it. 2 or 3 people can raise it in an hour. They can take it down just as fast. They load it onto a camel, or these days, onto a trailer, and the house leaves with the family. Because here, you don't stay. You follow. You follow the grass, the water, the seasons. You break camp before the animals have grazed it bare, and you start again, farther on, 4 times a year, sometimes more. That's what we call nomadism. And even today, close to 1 Mongolian in 3 lives like this. Not in a museum, not for the cameras, for real. Hold on to this image, a house you fold up and carry away, the center of the world, wherever you set it down. We'll come back to it at the very end, and by then, it will mean something else. But a house that moves is useless without something to move it, and that something, in Mongolia, has 4 legs. Ask a Mongolian child of the steppe what they can do, and the odds are they'll say, ride a horse, before they can read, sometimes before they can walk well. They say a Mongolian is born on a horse. It isn't entirely an exaggeration. Children of 5, 6, 7 ride alone, bareback, on animals far bigger than they are, and gallop as if it were the most natural thing in the world. To them, it is. The horse, here, is the engine, the pride, the transport, the food, the identity. It's the horse that carried an empire from one end of a continent to the other. We'll get there. But it isn't alone. A nomadic family's wealth is counted in animals, and always the same 5. They call them the 5 muzzles. The horse, the cow, or up high, the yak, huge, shaggy, indifferent to the frost. The camel, for the desert. The sheep, for meat and felt. And the goat, which gives cashmere, wool so fine it's shipped all over the world. The whole of life turns around them. You wake with them. You move for them. You milk. You shear. You tend. You protect. In return, they give everything. The warmth of the walls, the milk, the dried curd that lasts the whole winter, and the airag, that fermented mare's milk, faintly alcoholic, sour, alive, that someone will hand you in a bowl the moment you step through a door. Because there's a rule here, stronger than all the others. On land where the nearest house is 40 kilometers away, you do not have the right to refuse hospitality. A traveler who stops at your gers, you feed, you warm, you shelter. No questions asked. Because tomorrow, the traveler will be you. The emptiness you see doesn't make people cold. It makes them depend on one another. That's the first thing this country teaches you. But the emptiness has another face, and that one nobody invites in. Everything we've just described, the animals, the gers, the freedom, hangs by a thread. And every winter, that thread can snap in a single night. Mongolians have a word for that night. A word with no real equivalent anywhere else, because few places know the thing it describes. The word is dzud. A dzud is when winter crosses a line. A cold that drops so low for so long that snow and ice seal the grass under a shell the animals can no longer break through. The herds don't die of cold at first, they die of hunger. Standing in the white above grass, they can smell but cannot reach. And there, the herder can do nothing. He watches. That's all. He watches everything his family owns waste away, day after day. Here's the scale of it. In the winter of 2009 to 2010, a dzud killed roughly 10 million animals across Mongolia. 10 million. Families who woke up rich with several hundred head found themselves by spring with nothing. The ground was covered with frozen carcasses no one had the strength to bury. And it wasn't a one-time accident. The winter of 2022 to 2023 did it again and took millions more. This is the true face of the emptiness. The same step that in summer feeds an entire people in silence can, in winter, take it all back without a word. It gives and it kills with the same indifference. And there's no one 300 kilometers out to help you carry the loss. Keep that word in mind, dzud, because it isn't only a tragedy of winter. It is, as we'll see, the single most powerful force reshaping this entire country. The night that kills the animals ends up moving whole cities. But before that, before we understand where the survivors go, we have to see how this people, in spite of everything, celebrates being alive once a year, harder than anywhere else. Once a year, when the grass is high and the sky at its bluest, the emptiest country in the world gathers in one place. The festival is called Naadam, and for a few days, the emptiness fills up. 3 contests, 3 only. Wrestling. Men in curved toe boots grip each other on the grass. No weight classes, no clock. The first, whose back touches the ground, has lost. The winner spreads his arms and mimics, on the spot, the flight of the eagle. Archery, traditional bows, arrows loosed at small woven targets, with judges who raise their arms and chant at every hit. And horse racing, not a lap around a track, but long-distance races across 20-30 kilometers of open steppe, ridden by children of 7 or 8. Light, fearless, standing up in the dust and the thunder of hooves, wrestling, archery, horse. Look closely at those 3 contests. They are not games invented for show. They are 3 skills. The exact 3 skills a horseman once needed to cross a continent and bring it to its knees. Naadam is not a folklore festival. It's a memory. The memory carved into the muscles of a people, of the one time the emptiest country on earth ruled the world. And that time we have to tell, because it may be the most improbable thing this emptiness has ever produced. Here's a fact that should stop you for a second. The largest land empire in all of human history, the widest single, unbroken stretch of territory ever ruled, did not come out of a great capital, a rich coast, or a fertile river. It came out of here, out of this steppe with no walls, no cities, not one cut stone. It all starts with a child, born around 1162, his father poisoned when he was small, his family driven off, starved, left for dead in the cold. His name is Temujin. That child will manage what no one had managed before him, to weld into a single people, the tribes that had spent their lives killing one another. In 1206, under the blue sky, he's given a title, Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. What follows sounds like legend, except it happened. Within a few decades, the horsemen of the steppe, those same wrestlers, those same archers, those same children born on a horse, pour across the continent. The Mongol Empire ends up stretching from the China Sea to the gates of Europe. A single block of land, all of one piece, that nothing has ever equaled, before or since. And the secret of that power was the emptiness itself. A people with no cities has nothing to defend and all the space in the world to maneuver. A people who fold their house in an hour, who live on horseback, who survive minus 40 degrees, are by their very nature the most mobile army the earth has ever carried. What looked like weakness, owning almost nothing, was the weapon. The emptiness hadn't made this people weak. It had forged them. 8 centuries later, Genghis Khan is everywhere, on the banknotes, on the name of the airport, on a 40-meter steel statue where he stares at the horizon on horseback. He remains the center of gravity of an entire people. You could stop there, on that proud image, the empty country that conquered the world. It would be a beautiful ending, but it would mean missing the real story. Because today, in this country, something is happening, something quiet and far bigger than it looks. We've shown you the emptiness for 20 minutes, the steppe, the desert, the endless horizon, and the whole time, without saying it, we let you believe one thing, that this emptiness was still, eternal, that this was Mongolia and that it would stay that way. It's not true. Here's the real number of this film, the one that turns everything else over. In the emptiest country on earth, nearly half the population now lives in a single city. One, the capital, Ulaanbaatar. Out of 3.5 million Mongolians, around 1.5 million are packed into that one spot, while the rest of the country, immense, empties out. Read that again. The most nomadic nation in the world is becoming, almost by accident, a nation of city dwellers. And you already know why. We set the word down earlier. Dzud, every winter that kills the herds, doesn't only kill animals, it kills a livelihood. A herder who loses his 5 muzzles in one night cannot start over from zero. It takes years, and a capital he no longer has. So he does the only thing left. He folds his gear one last time, and instead of raising it again 40 kilometers on, he loads it onto a truck and drives toward the city. There's the reversal. The emptiness you should fear in Mongolia isn't the steppe. The steppe has always been there. The emptiness that should worry you is the other one, the one that appears behind the herder who leaves, the round print in the grass, where a house used to be, the ger that won't be coming back. A way of life 4,000 years old is moving, ger by ger, toward one single point on the map, and what they find when they arrive looks nothing like what they left. Ulaanbaatar is a city of records, but not the kind they put on postcards. It's the coldest capital in the world, the only one on Earth whose average temperature across the whole year stays below freezing. In winter, in its streets, the mercury regularly drops toward -30, -40. And this is where the herder arrives, with his ger on the trailer. He can't afford an apartment. No one is waiting for him with a plot of land. So he does what hundreds of thousands have done before him. He raises his ger on a hillside, on the edge of town, where the city has no running water, no sewers, no central heating. These districts have a name, the ger districts. Today, about half the people of the capital live in them. And it's here that the great image of this film quietly closes. Remember the ger, the house that moves, the genius of never clinging to the ground, of following the grass, of setting down and moving on. The center of the world, wherever you placed it. Look at it now. The same ger, the same felt, the same ring open to the sky, but ringed by a wooden fence, planted, hooked up as best it can be to a stove, fed with coal, because there's nothing else. The house that was built to move doesn't move anymore. It arrived somewhere and it stayed. There's an irony history hasn't forgotten. Ulaanbaatar itself was, for a long time, a nomadic city, a camp of gers and temples that followed the seasons and the water. Over the centuries, it moved. They counted the times, 28 times. The capital of a people who moved too. Then one day, it stopped. It fixed itself to this spot, on the Tool River. And now, the whole country, slowly, comes to a stop with it. When those tens of thousands of coal stoves are all lit at once, on winter evenings, in the frozen bowl where the city sits, the smoke doesn't leave. It stays. Ulaanbaatar becomes then one of the most polluted capitals on the planet. The cold that drove the herders off the steppe finds them again, right in the city they fled to. It's a sad story, but it isn't a finished one, because there's one thing left in this country that neither the winter nor the city has managed to put out. Go back west, far from the city, into the Altai mountains where Mongolia touches its last borders. Up there lives a people a little apart, Kazakhs, and a tradition almost nothing in the world has kept, hunting with eagles. A rider goes out into the cold. a golden eagle perched on his gloved arm. A huge bird, over 2 meters across, able to drop on a fox through the snow. The man and the eagle have spent years learning each other. At the top of a ridge, he unties the leather hood that covered the bird's eyes, and he lets it go into the blue sky. Look at that sky. It's the same one from the opening, the same one that arched over Temujin in 1206, the same deep, dry, enormous blue that Mongolians have revered for longer than any book can measure. Because before Buddhism, before anything, they believed in Tengri, the sky god, the sky as a divinity. That's where the country's nickname comes from, the land of the eternal blue sky. It isn't a postcard, it's what's left when everything else has been folded, loaded, moved, a roof no one can carry away, and one that covers the herder of the steppe and the child of the gers districts alike. And you understand, at last, the answer to the question from the start. We asked, what does it mean to belong to a place that is almost entirely emptiness? Here's the answer. Out here, you don't belong to a piece of ground. There are no walls to defend, no address to pass down, no house nailed to a plot. What you belong to is bigger than that. It's space itself, the freedom to fold your house and set it down somewhere else. And above it, always, that sky that doesn't change. The emptiness was never an absence. It was room to be free. At the very start of this film, a family folded its house and carried it away. Come back to that one last time. Somewhere on the steppe this morning, a young man loosens the straps of a gers. He grew up with a phone in his pocket and the gallop in his legs. He could leave for the city like so many others. He knows the number. Half the country is already there. He knows the dzud. He watched it take animals from his father. And yet this morning, he rolls the felt. He loads the house. He takes it 40 kilometers on, toward fresher grass. Behind him, on the ground, all that's left is a circle of flattened grass, the round print of a house that was there and isn't anymore. For someone who doesn't know this country, that empty circle is loneliness, abandonment, the end of the world. But for him, it's the exact opposite. That circle is proof that he's still free, that the house still moves, that the sky is still there, that in the emptiest country on earth, you can still set the center of the world wherever you want and move it again tomorrow. That's what it means to live in Mongolia. Not to own a place, but to belong to the space. Next time, we trade the vast emptiness for its exact opposite, a world scattered across water. Where Mongolia was a single land under a single sky, this is a country broken into 1,000 islands, flung across an open ocean where the sea between them was never a border, only the way home. That's living in the Philippines. If you want to keep discovering how people live on the edges of the world, subscribe. We still have a lot of horizons to open. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and we'll see you under the next sky.